I'm delighted to be joining this call. Thank you to the previous speaker for the personal testimony. It really makes a difference. I want to thank Shattering Glass and Free Speech for People for bringing us together tonight. I also want to acknowledge former Nevada State Senator Pat Spearman, Dr. Cheryl Hamlin as well for emceeing. I also want to thank you for your commitment to the rights of women everywhere. Thank you for standing up for all the unfinished business we have to do in making sure we have an equal rights amendment to our US Constitution. I think everyone on this call knows the history, but suffragists like Alice Paul and New York City's Crystal Eastman drafted this constitutional amendment over 100 years ago. It passed by 2/3 in the House and Senate in the 1970s and then was sent to the states. Like all constitutional amendments, the ERA requires 3/4 of those states to ratify it. It took a while, but in 2020, Virginia became the 38th state, the 3/4 of states that was necessary to ratify the amendment. So by law, the ERA should have been signed and published by the archivist in 2020 and become the 28th Amendment. Well, why didn't that happen? Obviously, the president at the time was Donald Trump, and he directed his lawyers to make sure the ERA was not published. His lawyers used flawed reasoning in an Office of Legal Counsel opinion, saying that it took too long and it couldn't be published. Now, with Trump becoming president again, and with Republicans set to control the House, Senate, and the Supreme Court, we continue to face an unbelievable threat to women's reproductive freedom. But they're not in full control yet, which is why we're having this call. And if there's one thing that we can do and should do before January 20th, it is to call on the archivist to sign and publish the Equal Rights Amendment. We need to make discrimination on the basis of sex, like all restrictions on reproductive health care that single out gender, unconstitutional once and for all. Why? Because it's our best chance to have protections for reproductive freedom. It's the only way to enshrine equality for all America's women and girls into the US Constitution. It could be used to enhance protections against pay discrimination, gender-based violence, sex discrimination in federally funded education programs or activities. It could help curb discrimination against pregnant people in the workplace, as well as guarantee our reproductive freedom. Too many lives have been already lost because the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. But this is our secret weapon, and it is high time to use it. How do we make this happen? Well, I am pushing on President Biden and the Biden administration to direct the archivist right now to sign and publish the ERA. I also spoke to my Senate colleagues. We wrote a letter and I think we got 46 signatures on that letter, requesting the administration to take a look at this and to direct the archivist to sign and publish it. But I think tonight is about garnering and building a show of support from the American people. We already have the lawyers behind us. The ABA wrote a decision saying that our legal arguments that the 7-year deadline in the preamble is not constitutionally operative. It's not operative for two reasons. One, Article 5 does not give Congress the ability to set deadlines. And in the alternative, if you believe Congress can set a deadline, then setting one in a preamble is not constitutionally operative. You would have had to put it in the actual amendment itself, which is what the states actually ratify. So we believe these arguments are the strongest arguments. Pretty much every blue or purple state attorney general has also signed on to a brief arguing these points. So we believe we have the weight of the law on our side. Donald Trump's Office of Legal Counsel memo misstated the law. They said all constitutional amendments have to be done in a timely way from the time they're proposed. That's definitely not true. They cited a 1921 case, but little did they acknowledge the 27th Amendment took 203 years to ratify. So there's no timeliness requirement. So we believe this is the strongest legal argument. I have pitched this directly to President Biden last time I saw him in New York City. He loved the idea. So now it's about creating momentum for his team to get behind him and the rest of us to want to call on the archivist to sign and publish. I believe the archivist, once she hears this from the president, I think she'll have the courage to do so. So I'm optimistic that our advocacy could make a difference. Americans may have elected Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States, but a majority still support the right to reproductive freedom. We need to show President Biden that this is something the American people support before it's too late. So I urge you to go to shatteringglass.org/take action and make your voice heard. The ERA is literally the only constitutional amendment that's ever been proposed that met all the requirements, that got the 2/3 of the House and Senate, as we did in the 70s, and got 3/4 of the states to ratify, like we finished in 2020, and is still being denied certification. So I believe it is absolutely the right time for President Biden to hear from the American people about why this is so important to ensure and enshrine equality for all in our U.S. Constitution.